The Galactic Council had existed for 14,000 years. In that time, they had encountered thousands of species, annexed millions of worlds, and established what they believed to be the fundamental laws of interspecies relations. Chief among these was the definition of power, the capacity to destroy. Admiral Vex stood at the bridge of the inevitable dominance, the flagship of the Council's 7th Fleet. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he observed the small blue-green world on the main view screen. Such an unremarkable planet, he commented to Commander Drell. And yet our scouts report that they've achieved nuclear fission and rudimentary space travel. Primitives, Drell replied, her mandibles clicking in amusement. But protocol demands we make contact once they've reached this technological threshold. Vex nodded. The Council's approach was consistent. Demonstrate overwhelming force, demand allegiance, and incorporate the new species into the lowest tier of the galactic hierarchy. Those who resisted were made examples of. It was efficient. It was logical. It had never failed. Prepare the contact squadron, Vex ordered. Standard intimidation formation. 12 warships descended through Earth's atmosphere, positioning themselves over major cities. Their hulls were scarred from past conflicts, intentionally left unrepaired to showcase their battle experience. Energy weapons powered up, not to fire, but to display capability. In the United Nations emergency session, representatives from Earth's nations gathered in unprecedented unity. They're positioning over every major capital, said General Thompson, a sturdy man with graying hair. Military analysis suggests their weapons could glass our cities in seconds. President Rivera of the North American Alliance looked grim. And our missiles. Our simulations indicate they would be intercepted before reaching their targets, replied Dr. Miller, the lead physicist. Their technology appears to be centuries ahead of ours. A communication request flashed across all Earth's digital networks simultaneously. When accepted, Admiral Vex's imposing figure appeared on screens worldwide. People of Earth, he announced, universal translators converting his clicks and whistles into human languages. I am Admiral Vex of the Galactic Council. Your world now stands at the threshold of joining the greater galactic community. Your options are simple. Accept Council authority and enjoy the benefits of our protection, or resist and face extinction. You have 48 of your hours to submit your response. The transmission ended. In the emergency bunker beneath Washington, a team of diplomats, scientists, and military strategists gathered. They're following the classic colonial playbook, Dr. Anna Lee observed. The historian's voice was calm despite the circumstances. Demonstrate overwhelming superiority, then offer the choice that isn't really a choice. General Thompson slammed his fist on the table. So we just surrender. Become some alien vassal state. Dr. Miller had been unusually quiet, studying the sensor readings from the alien ships. He finally spoke up. They're powerful, yes, but they've made a critical mistake. What's that? Rivera asked. They've only defined power in terms of destruction, Miller said, a small smile forming. And they've completely misunderstood what makes humans unique. For the next 47 hours, Earth did something unexpected. They didn't prepare for war. They didn't surrender. Instead, they talked. Every communication channel accessible to humans buzzed with conversation. Leaders spoke with leaders. Scientists with scientists. Artists with artists. When Admiral Vex received Earth's response, it wasn't what he expected. It wasn't surrender. It wasn't defiance. It was an invitation. Admiral Vex was puzzled by the human response. In 14,000 years of Council history, no species had ever replied to first contact with an invitation to dinner. This is clearly a trap, Commander Drell insisted as they prepared to teleport to the designated meeting location, the United Nations headquarters in New York. Our scans show no significant weapons, Vex replied, adjusting his ceremonial armor. And our shields will protect us from any primitive ambush. Remember, Commander, this is merely a formality before they submit. When the alien delegation materialized in the General Assembly Hall, They were greeted not by armed soldiers, but by a diverse group of humans. Some wore formal attire, others more casual clothing, and they represented various ages, ethnicities, and professions. President Rivera stepped forward. "Admiral Vex, welcome to Earth. We've prepared a cultural exchange rather than a surrender ceremony. We believe there's been a misunderstanding about our place in the galaxy." Vex's translator took a moment to process this unexpected response. "There is no misunderstanding. The Council's hierarchy is absolute. Your species will be classified as Tier 7, with appropriate resource tributes and population controls." Dr. Miller approached, extending a small device. "Before we discuss terms, would you mind examining this?" Cautiously, Vex accepted the object, a simple tablet displaying Earth's internet. "What is this primitive technology supposed to demonstrate?" "Just browse freely," Miller suggested. "It's a window into humanity." Over the next few hours, something unprecedented occurred. Instead of negotiations, the humans simply shared. They showed art and music. They explained jokes and poetry. They demonstrated cooking and sports. They displayed their literature, their philosophies, their countless different viewpoints on existence itself. Back on the inevitable dominance, the crew was bewildered as their admiral's delegation remained planetside far longer than protocol dictated. In the Council's 14,000-year history, intimidation had always worked because species developed in similar patterns: survival, competition, hierarchy. The strong dominated the weak. It was considered universal law. But humans were different. They had survived not despite their differences, but because of them. Their cultures hadn't homogenized, but had instead flourished in their diversity. They competed, yes, but they also cooperated in ways that defied the Council's understanding. "You have over 200 sovereign nations," Vex said, amazement creeping into his voice as he reviewed Earth's political structures. "And yet you haven't destroyed each other." "We've tried," General Thompson admitted with dark humor. "But we've learned something important along the way." President Rivera nodded. "True power isn't just the capacity to destroy, Admiral. It's also the capacity to create, to connect, to understand." Commander Drell scoffed. "Pretty words from a species about to be subjugated." Dr. Annalise smiled gently. "If you truly believe that destruction is the ultimate power, then answer me this. Why has your council remained essentially unchanged for 14,000 years? Where is your growth? Your art? Your new ideas?" For the first time in his distinguished career, Admiral Vex found himself without a ready response. The council's stagnation was something he'd occasionally pondered but never dared to voice. As night fell over New York, the humans did something else unexpected. They threw a party. Music played, food was shared, and the barriers between human and alien began to blur through the universal language of celebration. Vex watched as his own crew, initially standoffish, became engaged in conversations with humans. One engineer was excitedly discussing propulsion theory with Dr. Miller. Drell herself was reluctantly admitting interest in Earth's martial arts traditions. "This isn't protocol," Vex murmured to Rivera. The president smiled. "No, it's not. It's humanity. And we're just getting started." 3 days had passed since first contact, and Admiral Vex had not given the order to subjugate Earth or to withdraw. This unprecedented delay had not gone unnoticed by the Galactic Council. "High Command is demanding an explanation," Commander Drell reported, her normal confidence wavering. "The Counselor of Conquest himself will arrive within 2 planetary rotations to assess the situation." Vex nodded, his gaze fixed on the streams of data flowing through his neural interface. Human literature, philosophy, music, scientific theories. Let him come. There is something unusual happening here. The humans had proposed a challenge, a series of competitions between their representatives and the Council's forces, not to determine Earth's fate, but simply to learn from each other. Against all protocol, Vex had accepted. The first contest was held in a large stadium. Commander Drell, representing the Council, faced Jack Wilson, an unassuming human with graying temples. The challenge: chess. This primitive game is beneath me, Drell complained as Jack explained the rules. Our strategic simulations encompass billions of variables across four-dimensional space. Jack smiled gently. Then this should be easy for you. To Drell's shock, she lost within 27 moves. Then again in the rematch. By the third game, her mandibles were clicking in agitation. Impossible. Your neural capacity is a fraction of mine. Jack shrugged. Chess isn't just about processing power. It's about creativity, anticipation, understanding your opponent as a thinking being. The second contest pitted the Council's strongest warrior, Gorks, against Maria Torres, a human female half his size. The challenge: adaptive combat. Gorks laughed through his breathing apparatus. Your muscles are like twigs compared to mine. The rules were simple. As the environment changed, so must the fighting style. It began in an open field where Gorks' strength gave him advantage. But when water filled the arena, Maria's swimming prowess evened the odds. When gravity shifted, her gymnastics background proved decisive. When darkness fell, her training in blind fighting became the determining factor. Gorks, master of a single dominant fighting style, found himself repeatedly outmaneuvered by Maria's adaptability. How? He demanded afterward, nursing his bruised ego and body. Your species has not even traveled beyond your solar system. Because we've had to adapt to survive each other, Maria explained. Thousands of different fighting styles developed across our world, each suited to different environments and situations. The third challenge was perhaps the most revealing. Teams from both sides were given identical resources and asked to solve an engineering problem: building a bridge across a chasm. The Council team produced a flawless structure, exactly according to the specifications, completed in record time. The human team's bridge looked distinctly different. It contained artistic elements, unexpected materials, and several innovations that weren't in the original design. Your bridge is non-standard. The Council's chief engineer objected. The specifications were clear. Dr. Miller walked across the human bridge, which hummed with subtle harmonics as the wind passed through it. We saw the specifications as a starting point, not an ending. We asked ourselves not just how to build a bridge, but how to build a better bridge. By the time the Counselor of Conquest's ship entered Earth orbit, Admiral Vex had witnessed dozens more such demonstrations. Humans excelled not because they were stronger or more intelligent as individuals, but because they approached problems from countless different angles simultaneously. The Counselor, a massive being named Sorb, demanded an immediate meeting with Vex. "Explain yourself, Admiral," Sorb thundered, his ceremonial armor radiating menace. "Why has this primitive world not been properly subjugated?" Vex stood his ground. "Because, Counselor, I believe we may have fundamentally misunderstood what constitutes power in this galaxy." Sorb's eyes narrowed. "Careful, Admiral. Such talk borders on heresy." "Nevertheless," Vex replied, "I request you observe these humans yourself before rendering judgment. They have challenged our most basic assumptions." Sorb scoffed. "Very well. I shall witness this supposed challenge to 14,000 years of Council wisdom. But know this, if I find you have been compromised, both you and this world will face the consequences." Counselor Sorb was not easily impressed. As the overseer of 1,000 subjugations, he had seen countless species try to argue, fight, or bargain their way out of Council dominion. None had succeeded. "These demonstrations are meaningless," he growled after witnessing several human presentations. "So they can solve puzzles and create art. How does this change the fundamental reality of power?" Admiral Vex had expected this reaction. "Counselor, the humans have requested permission to show you something they call their greatest power. I scanned their facility. It contains no weapons." Sorb's multiple eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of contempt. "Very well. One final indulgence before I order the standard subjugation protocol." They transported to a complex called the International Cooperation Center, where representatives from dozens of Earth nations waited. President Rivera stepped forward. "Counselor, we understand your council defines power by the ability to destroy. We'd like to show you a different definition." They entered a vast chamber where thousands of humans worked at various stations. Some wore lab coats, others military uniforms, still others casual clothing from cultures around the world. "This is our response to existential threats," explained Dr. Lee. "Not conquest, but cooperation." On massive screens, they displayed Earth's history, centuries of warfare, environmental destruction, and near-extinction events. Then they showed what came after: international climate accords, peace treaties, collaborative science initiatives. 60 years ago, we nearly destroyed ourselves with nuclear weapons, General Thompson said. Instead, we created international frameworks for cooperation. 30 years ago, our climate crisis nearly rendered our planet uninhabitable. Instead, we developed global technologies to reverse the damage. They guided XORB through sections devoted to different global challenges. In each case, the pattern was the same. A threat emerged. Humans fought among themselves about how to address it, then eventually found ways to collaborate that preserved their differences while achieving common goals. Fascinating historical data, XORB admitted grudgingly, but this doesn't demonstrate power as the Council defines it. Dr. Miller smiled. "We're just providing context. The demonstration is this." He gestured to a holographic display showing thousands of tiny points of light connecting across Earth. "This is our global response network. When a crisis occurs anywhere on our planet, natural disaster, disease outbreak, technological failure, expertise and resources are instantaneously mobilized across political boundaries." As if on cue, an alert sounded. An earthquake had struck a remote region. Within seconds, the display showed resources rerouting, experts connecting, and solutions deploying from dozens of countries simultaneously. "What you're seeing," Rivera explained, "is not centralized control, but distributed response. Each contributor maintains their autonomy while participating in the whole." XORB studied the display with new interest. "Your system lacks efficiency. A council directive would deploy resources in optimal fashion without this chaos." "But at what cost?" asked Dr. Lee. "Your optimization removes diversity of approach. When you have only one solution and it fails, everything fails. We've learned that redundancy and diversity create resilience." For demonstration, they ran simulations of various catastrophic scenarios: asteroid impacts, pandemic outbreaks, even scenarios mimicking a council attack. In each case, the human response was never exactly the same, adapting to circumstances in ways that were impossible to predict or counter completely. "Our strength isn't in our ability to destroy," Rivera said quietly. "It's in our ability to survive, adapt, and rebuild, together but different." For perhaps the first time in his long career, Councillor XORB found himself reconsidering fundamental assumptions. The Council's approach to power had always been vertical, top-down control enforced by the threat of destruction. What the humans demonstrated was horizontal power, distributed, adaptive, and remarkably resilient. "Admiral," XORB said finally, "I begin to understand your hesitation. These humans are unusual." Vex nodded. "And we haven't even shown you their most interesting quality yet." Councillor XORB had not become the counselor of conquest by being easily swayed. Despite the impressive demonstrations, he remained skeptical of humanity's significance in the galactic order. "Admiral Vex," he said as they returned to the inevitable dominance, "while these humans show interesting social organization, they remain technologically inferior. The Council's mandate is clear." Vex had anticipated this response. "Before you render final judgment, Counselor, the humans have extended one last invitation. They wish to show us what they call their Horizon projects." XORB sighed, his patience wearing thin. "Very well. One final indulgence." The next day, They traveled to a facility deep beneath the Alps. Dr. Miller led them through security protocols into a chamber housing a device unlike anything they had seen on Earth before. This, Miller explained, is our first functional quantum entanglement communicator. It enables instantaneous communication across any distance. Exorb scoffed. The Council has possessed such technology for millennia. Yes, Miller acknowledged, but did you develop it under threat of extinction? We created this in response to your arrival, adapting theoretical models into working prototypes within days. Thorb's dismissive posture shifted slightly. You claim to have developed this technology in mere days. When sufficiently motivated, human innovation accelerates exponentially, Miller explained. But this is just one example. Their next stop was a facility in the Pacific Ocean, where massive structures extended into the deep sea. Our fusion program, Dr. Lee explained. We've achieved sustainable reactions that your scans likely detected as primitive fission power. We kept the true extent of our energy capabilities shielded. Throughout the day, they visited site after site, each revealing technologies far beyond what the Council's initial assessment had indicated. Gravity manipulation, biological engineering, materials science that approached Council standards. How is this possible? Commander Drell finally asked. Our reconnaissance was thorough. President Rivera smiled. Because we didn't develop these technologies in obvious ways, our approach is decentralized. No single nation or corporation possesses the complete picture. It's only when we combine our knowledge that the full extent becomes apparent. The most startling revelation came at their final stop, a nondescript building in Antarctica. Inside, a holographic display showed thousands of simulations running simultaneously. Each represented a different possible future for human civilization, accounting for countless variables, including first contact scenarios. This is the Convergence Project, Miller explained. For decades, we've been modeling potential extraterrestrial encounters and optimal response strategies. Thorb studied the simulations with growing unease. Many showed Earth being conquered by forces similar to the Council's. But others, the ones marked as highest probability, showed something entirely different. Integration scenarios where both humanity and their contactors benefited. You anticipated us, Sorb realized. Not you specifically, Rivera clarified. But we anticipated that first contact would likely come from a species with superior technology and a colonial mindset. It's a pattern we recognize from our own history. And this is your response. These hidden technologies and cooperative systems. No, Dr. Lee said quietly. Our response is this. She activated a final display showing hundreds of worlds across the galaxy, many under Council control. Alongside each was a detailed analysis of its population, culture, resources, and relationship to the Council. We've been studying your transmissions since your ships entered our solar system, General Thompson explained. Your encryption was advanced but not impenetrable to our distributed computing networks. You've been spying on the Council, Sorb said, his voice dangerous. We've been learning, Rivera corrected. And what we've learned is that many worlds under Council control are deeply dissatisfied. Your protection has become stagnation. Your order has become oppression. Vex watched Sorb carefully, seeing the Councilor's anger rise. What exactly are you proposing, humans? President Rivera's expression was calm but resolute, an alternative to conquest or submission. A genuine alliance, not just with Earth, but potentially with any world that wishes to explore a different kind of interstellar relationship. This is sedition, Sorb hissed. This, Rivera replied, is evolution. And it's our invitation to the Council. Evolve with us, or watch as the definition of power changes throughout the galaxy. The Council warship Supreme Doctrine arrived in Earth orbit 2 days later, responding to Councilor Sorb's urgent summons. Its appearance, a massive construct of dark metals and energy fields visible even to the naked eye from Earth's surface, was meant to end the discussion permanently. Admiral Krell, Sorb's superior and the Council's foremost military commander transported directly to the inevitable dominance. "This situation has become untenable," Krell announced, his voice reverberating through the command deck. "The Council has reviewed your reports, Huxorb, and finds them disturbing. A clear case of alien influence compromising our leadership." Vex stepped forward. "Admiral Krell, I request the opportunity to present evidence before any action is taken." Krell's 4 eyes narrowed simultaneously. "Your request is denied. Vex, standard subjugation protocols will commence immediately." Throughout the fleet, weapons systems powered up. On Earth, humans watched the ships maneuvering into attack formation. But something unexpected happened. On 3 Council vessels, including the inevitable dominance, weapons systems suddenly went offline. "What is the meaning of this?" Krell demanded. Commander Drell spoke up, her voice steady despite her clear trepidation. "Many of us have spent time among the humans, Admiral. We've seen something the Council has forgotten." "Treason," Zorb hissed. "Perspective," Drell corrected. "For 14,000 years, the Council has defined power as the capacity to destroy. But destruction is easy. Creation, true creation, that's the real challenge." Across the fleet, communications buzzed as crew members who had visited Earth shared their experiences with those who hadn't. Stories of human art, science, philosophy, and cooperation spread from ship to ship. Admiral Krell was unmoved. "Your sentimentality is noted, Commander. It will be addressed in your court-martial. The remaining ships will proceed with the subjugation." From Earth, a transmission interrupted. Dr. Miller's face appeared on the command deck's central screen. "Admiral Krell, before you fire, you should know that we've been broadcasting everything that's happened since first contact to every world in Council space." Krell froze. "Impossible. Our communications network is secure." "It was," Miller acknowledged. "Until we reprogram the quantum entanglement relays on your own ships. Every species under Council rule has been watching this encounter unfold. They've seen your threats, and they've seen alternatives." President Rivera joined the transmission. "We don't want conflict, Admiral. We never did. What we want is genuine exchange. You've ruled through fear for 14,000 years. We're offering something different. Collaboration between equals." Reports began flooding in from across Council space. On dozens of worlds, populations were organizing, not in violent rebellion, but in peaceful demonstration. They were calling for what humans had shown them was possible: autonomy within cooperation. "This changes nothing," Krell insisted, though uncertainty had crept into his voice. "The Council's authority is absolute." "Is it?" asked Vex quietly. "Or is it simply that no one has questioned it until now?" For 14,000 years, the Council had maintained control through a simple principle: isolated species could not stand against unified force. But humanity had turned that principle on its head. They hadn't fought the Council. They had connected with its people and its subjects. Admiral Krell faced a decision unprecedented in Council history. The subjugation protocols were clear, but executing them now would mean revealing to the entire galaxy that the Council's power ultimately rested on destruction alone. In that moment, something remarkable happened. Councillor Xorb, who had spent his entire career enforcing the Council's will, stepped forward. "Admiral Krell," he said formally, "I recommend we suspend standard protocols and establish diplomatic relations with Earth." Krell's expression registered shock. "You've been compromised, Xorb." "I've been enlightened," Xorb corrected. "These humans have reminded me of something our ancient records speak of, that before the Council ruled through fear, it once led through wisdom." Throughout the fleet, crew members waited in tense silence. The humans watched from below, having done all they could to present an alternative to conflict. Finally, Admiral Krell spoke. "The Council has never retreated, never compromised. Our power is absolute." "Perhaps," Vex suggested, "true power is the ability to change when presented with better alternatives." For the first time in 14,000 years, the Galactic Council faced a force it could not simply destroy or intimidate into submission. Not because humanity was stronger, but because they had redefined the nature of strength itself. Krell made his decision. 6 months after first contact, the Earth Diplomatic Center hosted representatives from over 300 worlds. Some wore the formal insignia of the Galactic Council. Others displayed the symbols of newly independent systems. All had come to witness something unprecedented. Admiral Vex, now serving as the Council's chief diplomatic officer, stood beside President Rivera as they prepared to sign the Galactic Cooperation Accord. There were many in the Council who predicted disaster. Vex remarked quietly. They said offering member worlds more autonomy would lead to chaos. Rivera smiled. And instead, we've seen more innovation and progress in 6 months than in the previous century. It's humbling. The Accord represented a fundamental restructuring of galactic relations. The Council remained, but as a coordinating body rather than a ruling one. Member worlds now held voting rights proportional to their population, not their military might. Knowledge exchange had replaced resource tributes. Most significantly, the definition of galactic advancement had been rewritten. No longer was it measured by territorial control or destructive capability, but by a complex matrix of factors including scientific progress, cultural flourishing, and successful cooperation. In the Great Hall, species that had been bitter enemies under the old system now engaged in spirited but peaceful debate about shared challenges. Engineers from a dozen worlds collaborated on environmental restoration projects. Artists exchanged techniques and traditions developed across vastly different biologies. Admiral Krell had ultimately chosen neither complete surrender nor outright attack. Instead, faced with dissent within his own ranks and peaceful resistance across the galaxy, he had opened negotiations. The resulting compromise had cost him his position. The Council conservatives had seen it as weakness, but had preserved the Council's existence in a new form. Dr. Miller joined Vex and Rivera, carrying a small device. The quantum network is now operational across all signatory worlds, he reported. Instantaneous communication throughout the cooperative. Communication without control, Vex mused. Another concept we have forgotten was possible. On Earth, the changes were equally profound. Humanity's place in the galaxy had accelerated their own development in unexpected ways. With access to the accumulated knowledge of thousands of species, human science and culture were experiencing a renaissance. But perhaps more importantly, humanity's approach to difference had begun to influence galactic culture. Species that had hidden their internal diversity under Council rule now celebrated it. The concept that strength could come from variation rather than uniformity was spreading. Commander Drell, now heading a multi-species research initiative, approached with news. The first Joint Human Council Deep Space Expedition is ready for launch, she reported. They'll be exploring beyond the galaxy's edge, territory even the Council never reached. Who would have thought, Vex commented, that our greatest expansion would come not through conquest, but through cooperation. As the ceremony began, representatives from worlds across the galaxy took their places. Many had been bitter enemies under the old system. Some had histories of violence that stretched back millennia. Yet here they stood, not in forced submission to Council authority, but in voluntary association. President Rivera addressed the gathered representatives. When we first looked up at the stars, humanity imagined many possible futures. Some were dark, conquest, subjugation, even extinction. Others were bright, peaceful contact, shared knowledge, mutual growth. What we never fully appreciated was that the future wasn't something that would simply happen to us. It was something we would help create. She gestured to the diverse gathering. Today, we aren't creating a utopia. We aren't solving all problems or erasing all differences. What we are doing is acknowledging a profound truth. That power defined only as the capacity to destroy will always, eventually, destroy itself. True power, lasting power, lies in the ability to create, to adapt, to grow, and to do so together. Admiral Vex stepped forward. For 14,000 years, the Council believed we understood power. Humanity helped us recognize that our definition was incomplete. He turned to face the Earth delegation. You could have tried to fight us. You could have surrendered. Instead, you showed us another way. As the accord was signed, a new chapter in galactic history began. Not one of human dominance replacing Council rule that would have merely substituted one form of power for another, but one of genuine transformation in how power itself was understood. In the observatory above the diplomatic center, Dr. Lee stood with Counselor Kathor, watching the stars.